here.
Introduce yourself and your title.
Yeah. My name is Caroline, and I'm Director of Planning and Modal Programs for the Texas Department of Transportation.
And so, Caroline, we've been at a Texas House of Representatives Transportation Committee hearing today here in Brownsville, and you testified, and part of your testimony included a discussion on the report that you're required to do, that study, the Texas-Mexico study that you've been working on. Give us the latest update on that.
Yeah, the main study that we have done to date, we have completed the Texas-Mexico Border Transportation Master Plan that was completed in 2021. The main component of that plan was identified the needs and identified over 600 projects worth $34.3 billion. But a vast majority of those projects, 449 projects worth over $29.8 billion, are not currently funded.
And you got some reaction from the chairman, Representative Canales. He's obviously showing concern. He seemed to focus a lot on the FAR bridge, but he shares TxDOT's concern. You've got all these great projects you identified, but there just isn't the funding from the legislature to carry them out.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned during my testimony, is that there's no dedicated funding for cross-border transportation projects, whether it's border crossings, highway, rail, or any of the other modes. So, although we identified the funding needs, right now there's not a dedicated funding source to be able to implement those projects.
Yeah. So give us, I don't know if you can remember all the stats that you read out, but how important is cross-border trade to our economy and the volumes and the value of those trucks?
Yeah, to just give you an example, since 1994 when NAFTA was adopted, Texas-Mexico trade grew from $50 billion in 1994 to over $230 billion in 2021. So that gives you a magnitude of growth of 267% over those years.
What's the next step with this study that you've been doing?
The next step is really we're looking to, advance and implement some of the recommendations. It was asked earlier today whether we have direct interstate connections to the port of entry. We are going to actually be assessing that in the next year or 2 years. We're going to specifically look at each of the border crossing and look at the connectivity challenges, for those border crossings.
So would it be the goal of TxDOT to have interstate connectivity from the bridge, from the land ports of entry to the interstate system?
Well, the goal is really, yes, if where feasible, direct roadway or interstate connection to the port of entry will make them more competitive, but also will make them not go in and around neighborhoods because primarily, especially for trucks. So the goal would be having really good roadway connectivity to the border crossings, whether it's an interstate or it's a state highway.
And there was one sort of startling statistic you put out there about how much business we lose when the trucks are stalled, when they're stuck on the bridges. And again, you had a good interaction there with the Chairman Canales. Remind us of how much value we lose with the trucks not moving.
Yeah, I think the stats that I talked about, productivity loss of $6.3 million a year. This is the truck driver and the truck sitting in congestion or delays at the border. On the GDP side, which is the gross state product, that is $2.6 billion a year that we lose as the state of Texas, and then that is projected to go to $116 billion in gross state product that we will lose if nothing is done to address the Texas-Mexico border crossing delays.
Have you crunched that out by the minute What's it worth?
Yes, and I can't remember. Apologize. Yeah.
Okay. Caroline, is there anything else you'd like to add about the testimony you gave today?
I think what I want to add, really, which I mentioned during my testimony, is it's vitally important if Texas is going to stay competitive and continue to be an economic superpower, is investments are needed in some of this critical infrastructure, but critical assets to the state of Texas. Border crossing, all the multimodal transportation system, seaports, and all the economic generators for the state of Texas.
Well, Caroline Mays, thank you so much for today's interview. It's always great to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate
Thanks for coming
the time.
back to the Valley.
Yes, I love being here. Thank you.